uh, cartoonist Tony Breed. Take it away, Tony.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I put together a presentation because it helps me organize my thoughts. So that's what I did. So I'll pull that up now. Um, and should be that. Okay. So you may not know who I am. That wouldn't surprise me. But I came into comics pretty late. I was 36 when I started a webcomic called Finn and Charlie Are Hitched, which is about a gay male couple and their friends. A little bit more later about the genesis of that. But 4 years later, I was nominated for two Ignatz Awards, Best Online Comic and Best Newcomer. And also, I had just turned 40. So I do recommend if you're going to turn 40 to like a week before get nominated for Best Newcomer. It's feels good. And the best online comic, I was up against Kate Beaton's comic Hark a Vagrant, and so I knew that I wasn't going to win, and that was very freeing. I could just kind of relax and enjoy the experience of being nominated without having to worry about whether I was going to. She did win, and she deserved to win, and so anyway. And I ran Hitched for 8 years, and I collected it into four books, and then I transitioned that comic to Muddlers Beat. I came up with a new name, same characters, new focus, and did that for 4 more years, and put that into two books. And then I sort of continued in mini comic format because I was trying to do something new, and that didn't work very well for me, and I went on hiatus. I've done assorted small projects and mini comics. I've sort of come back from hiatus in a really irregular way right now, but it's interesting to revisit the characters that I created. Um, oh, and there was also around 2013, a friend of mine, Tom McHenry, decided to start a newspaper, and he had a lot of people contributing to the newspaper and a lot of comics and things like that. And so I created something called The Early Works of a Future Troubled Genius. And the idea there was to break myself completely out of everything that I'd established for Finn and Charlie and do something that was um, less polished and less controlled and more absurdist. And it was basically about being a creative kid and then being an adult who was a creative kid in that experience. Um, I would say that my comic started as a quarter life crisis, more or less, as I was approaching 30. My friend Justin Hall, also a cartoonist, and he and I went to high school together. And we were talking about getting to be 30 and, what have we done and trying to do something by then. I had wanted to be a writer. I had had a I had one really bad professor in college who convinced me that I shouldn't write. And that was his modus operandi. He did this to a number of students. He would basically, there'd be like one person in the class he liked, and everyone else he would discourage. And it makes me mad when I think about it. But anyway, I didn't write again for 10 years. Um, so, uh, so Justin encouraged me to make comics again, and I started trying to work out ideas. And I always thought I would do something absurdist because I loved absurdist stuff, but then I couldn't think of anything, and everything I came up with sounded stupid. And finally, I thought, well, what do I know? And what I knew then was that I was gay and married. I was in a relationship with the same person since I was 20, and that is a very kind of ordinary and boring experience. And I feel uh, like gay marriage was a big political football at the time. This was the early 2000s when I was coming up with this, and I just kind of wanted to write about it and portray it as this sort of very ordinary thing. And that's what I created Finn and Charlie Are Hitched. Uh, the name Finn was because my husband loved Anthony Trollope's Phineas Finn books, and Charlie just went nice with Finn and Charlie. And oh, and side note, it turns out when I was Googling Finn and Charlie over the years, there were two twin boys out there in the world whose names are Finn and Charlie. Uh, and also they had two gay dads who I met at a comic show. Like this is completely, and I feel like an outrageous thing to have happened that I should pick these two names out of a hat, and then there's people with that as their actual name, and then they have gay dads. Anyway, um, so the comic was very just focused on the life of this couple and these sort of very ordinary things about being a couple. Um, they were when I first created them, it was basically it was me and Eric. Eric was the curmudgeon, and I was the goofball. So Finn was the curmudgeon, and Ernie was the goofball. I mean, Charlie was the goofball. This is these are all the books, the book covers over the years. One of the things that I learned in doing shows is that a really good name for a book will get people to stop at your table. So I would basically go through the book and pick like five of the best punchlines and figure out which ones would make a good title and which one would make a good I could make a drawing for. And the number of people who have bought literally everything is outside my comfort zone because they said, "Oh, I relate to that." Like they make a beeline, and then if I can convince them to buy the book. um, anyway, this is a photo of me and Eric when we got married. Okay, so I thought let's talk about. All right, and then when I created the comic, this is the first one I ever did, and so it was actually like a full page format. Um, the art was very rough. I was terrified. I penciled the whole thing, and I was terrified that uh, if I drew something well once, I would never draw it well again. So I actually like put tracing paper over this, and I inked over the tracing paper, and it took me a while to figure out that if I can draw something well once, I can draw it well twice, and I can and maybe even better the second time, and it's all fine, you know. But I was really nervous about it. Influences. I was really into the funny pages as a kid. Like I did read comic books, but like my bread and butter was opening those funny pages every day. And Peanuts and Doonesbury and Bloom County, I think, are like big uh, influences of mine. Um, and all of these are not just gags, but they tell stories and they have arcs and the characters feel very real, even in Bloom County where there's a lot of absurdity. So I'm going to talk about techniques now. Any questions before I keep going?
Good for now.
All right. So how do I write? I write while I'm walking. I if I'm having trouble writing, which is a lot of the time, I go and take a walk. And there's actually scientific research behind this that like the process of walking puts your brain in the right set of wavelengths to do creative work. But I write and I have my characters floating around in my head, and I kind of figure out a situation and I let them talk, and then I have this whole kind of thing in my head, and then I kind of figure out how to break it down into beats and into comics and how to do the whole thing, and then I get home and I have to try and write down everything that I had in my head. I don't do like voice notes or anything like that. Sometimes I'll like pull the phone out and write out notes, but for the most part I don't. And I think that that's fine because I do think that the more you kind of turn things over in your head, the better the result is. Uh, so also, I did a workshop at Cake at the Chicago Alternative Comics Expo on writing comedy, and I came up with a workshop format that basically mirrored an improv technique. There was an improv group in Chicago called Sheila, and they had the Sheila was the, the big wall of plot twists. Anyway, they would do this. They would come up with the characters, and they would have all these pieces of paper on the wall, and then someone in the audience they would do a scene, and then someone would yell freeze, and then someone would go and grab anything off the wall randomly, and it would say something like uh, long lost baby, or somebody dies, or birthday cake, I don't know, and then they would have to sort of incorporate that into the story. And so I said, well, I had a bunch of character cards and a bunch of situations. And I said, okay, everyone's going to pull random characters and situations, and then you're going to use that to write a comic. And so, as an example of this in my own comic is I found out that one of the sort of hipster bars in Chicago had a gay night, and I thought, oh, this is amazing. I should go to that. And I did, and then I thought, like, if I should put this into the comic, and then who would go? Well, it would be Charlie would go, and he would bring Ken because Ken's the one that makes sense to bring along. So if Charlie and Ken are going to the gay hipster night at the hipster bar, what does that look like? And then go and then run that through in my head, and then come up with these uh, jokes and scenarios and all of that. So that's essentially, I guess that's the definition of situation comedy. But I do think that another general technique I've done is taking a lot of situations from real life, and then rewriting them to make them better. The things that you think but don't actually say out loud, you have your characters say out loud, and then you see where that takes the situation. Um, oh, and also, like, I love writing arcs. They're just more interesting, and also you can, you come up with an idea for an arc, and then you've got like six comics to write instead of one. That's it's just good sense. Now, that's the writing techniques. In terms of drawing, I'm working digitally now, and I'm still figuring out how to work digitally and be happy with it. Because my day job involved working on computers, I really didn't want to do a lot of digital work because I'm in front of a computer all day long, and it's nicer to sit in front of a big piece of Bristol board and draw on it. But lately, it feels like if I don't have something very portable, then it's not getting done. So I've switched to doing things on the iPad. But this is the technique that served me for, 14, 15 years. Um, uh, Old school blue lines. There was a thing going around on Twitter back in the day where people were like sharing their blue lines, and then you could ink other people's blue lines, and um, it was a really fun activity, and I can't resist like doing things like that, like any kind of collaborative, or um, like a meme thing. Oh yes, I'm going to do this thing too. Here's a blue line. So I actually saved a blue line that scanned a blue line that hadn't been inked yet, and then I ink it. But then also I came up with this technique of using a yellow ink wash. And the reason is that I wanted to do like a gray ink wash like you see in the New York Times, but not New York Times, New Yorker. But I didn't want to. I know that Alison Bechtel does this thing where she does the inking, and then she does the light table, and she has another sheet of paper, and she does the wash on that, and then she has to like layer them on top of each other and get that perfect. And I um, can't take that kind of anxiety on a regular basis of scanning things and trying to get them to assemble. And I thought, what if I had some way of doing them on the same page and then separating them later? If you do yellow ink, then you can do a four color separation. It doesn't work as well with the magenta or the blue ink because the black will pick up a little bit of that, but the yellow ink is not picked up at all. I figured out after a while that I needed to use a dye-based ink because which this actually isn't. You can sort of see how the yellow is covering up the black ink. When I switch to a dye-based ink versus a pigment-based ink, then the black stays perfectly black, and then the yellow is yellow, and then you do your separation. You get your blacks, and your blacks are nice and crisp, and then you take your yellows, and then you colorize them. And then the other trick in Photoshop was using a photo filter, which gives a slight color variation, and you get something. So this is the yellow, and then once I've colorized it and applied a photo filter, it looks like this. And I think even in the future, I got even more aggressive with the photo filters so that the lighter shades would skew warmer and the darker shades would skew cooler, and it just ended up looking really nice, especially when you laid the colors over it and you bring them all together and you multiply. Um, and so that's how I would assemble. Uh, this is a dream sequence that I still love this comic, this idea of growing a beard for someone else. And anyway, also, jojoba is a good comedy word. I always, always use the good comedy words. Some mistakes I made at the beginning. So one of the things about the web comic world, especially when I was getting into it, because I got very into reading web comics in the early 2000s. Every day at my day job at lunch, I had all of these web comics saved, all the bookmarked, and you could you control click the bookmark tab and everything in the bookmark tab opens up, and I would have like 20 pages open up, and I would eat lunch at my desk and read a comic and close the tab and read a comic and close the tab. So I was very interested in what was going on there. There was a lot of creativity and a lot of freedom. The funny pages at that time were particularly kind of stocked with legacy strips, and there wasn't a lot of new stuff going in there. And there was a lot of really interesting new stuff going on the web. And so when I decided to put a comic out there, that's how I wanted to do it. But also, um, there were a lot of people out there who made very good comics, but you could go to their website and go to the beginning and see that they were not very good at the beginning, that they did not draw well, they hadn't figured out beats yet, and so I felt like I could just learn on the job, and that's what I did, and and I never wanted to take down those things that I put up that I don't think are very good and that embarrass me a little bit, because I feel like someone needs to see that, someone needs to see that growth is possible and that you start out bad and then you get good. That's how everything works. Nobody starts out good. So early mistakes. One was too much hatching. This was actually the first 3-panel strip that I ever ran. It's the first comic in the first collection. And I was using a lot of hatching. There are two reasons not to use hatching. One is that it looks really muddy on the web. It's just not a good choice for the web. But also, I think that it's a thing that you do because you're nervous about your work, that you're unhappy with what you're not comfortable with it, and you think, if I put more lines in this, then it'll look better. It's kind of a defense mechanism, and if you can. On the other hand, the reason I do the wash is instead of doing the hatching, like that's a whole do that, and then you get your own uh, it's also a way to um, clean it. I admire very much people who do work that's just clean lines. I think that I probably could do it if I let myself. Anyway, another mistake was trying to use color. I had I think I did 3 strips in color, and then I was like, "This, you're bad at this. Don't do that." Uh, so I went back to black and white. I did not know how to use color, and that turns out to be a difficult thing to learn. And then I did learn color, and the way that I did it, I worked up to it. I started out doing everything black and white, and then I started adding one color accent. So there'd be like a little bit of color in there, and then I started doing 2 color accents, and then I thought, well, now I can do full color. So this is what I learned over about how to do color and do it well. And my technique is you pick a simple palette. You get basically 3 hues, ignoring flesh tones and some neutrals, but you get 3 hues, and then you do multiple values of them. So some of them have high saturation and some low saturation. Some are dark and some are light. I like to try to place them in multiples of 15 degrees on the color wheel apart from each other because I feel like it sort of makes this mathematical harmony. But at the very least, the 2 hues, no 2 hues should be closer than 15 degrees apart. I did hear a thing that someone said that if you pick if you're painting, then you pick 3 colors of paint and you mix your entire palette of colors that you're using from those 3 colors of paint, then you will get a color palette that works if you focus on just 3 base pigments and then you build everything off of that. I've done some paintings like that, and that also works pretty well. But I can't paint comics. There are people who do, and they're amazing. I don't have that in me. Anyway, so this is a technique, and then also another thing is uh, just kind of swapping things vertically. So we've got a character who's got a maroon shirt and dark blue pants, and then we've got another character who's got pink pants. So you've got the blue and then the pink, and then the other character has the blue in the shirt again, and then he's got the pants and they're blue and they're light blue. And then the green picks up the green from the tree, and the blue matches the blue in the wall, and you get something that's very harmonious. This isn't what people look like in real life. In real life, people dress completely chaotically, but this is how they dress on TV. You get a costume designer to come in, and they make the color palette that works together. Some other things I figured out you can do with color is you can use it. You can tell a story. So matching colors create a feeling of harmony. If you have people in matching colors, and if you have a clash in color, you create a feeling of not belonging. So I had this storyline in which a character ends up at a wedding that he wasn't supposed to originally be at, and I put him in a set of colors that didn't look terrible, but also stood out as not flowing with the rest of it. And I was kind of looking around for better samples or more samples of that. I didn't really find much, but or anything where I was sure I'd done that. Anyway, one of the other things is that I did a 3-panel format for Finn and Charlie for those 8 years that I did that. I think all but 2 comics were 3 panels, and I got good at writing in 3 beats. And the thing about doing it that way is once you've made that decision, then you don't have to think every time, how am I going to lay this out? You've got your layout, you've got your beats, you don't have to figure that out. And having a rigid format can be very helpful. When I transitioned into Muddlers Beat, I decided that I was going to break out of that a little bit, and I added 2 more panels. So I had the 3-panel format and then 2 4-panel formats where there's one panel that's narrower than the others, and it's either the second or the fourth. And then that was, and then I write the joke and I think, is this a 3 beat joke or a 4 beat joke? And then how do I lay that out? How do I get which do I want to do the small panel as a second or the third, etc. Um, in terms of for uh, writing for panels, I feel like editing down is the most important thing that I learned. And actually, I used to be very active on Twitter, and especially in the old days when you could only write 120 characters, and that was really good for learning to edit because you'd have to figure out the most concise way of of writing whatever it is that you were uh, saying. There's actually one of the characters on screen here is Hiroshi, and when I picked his name, I wanted a Japanese name, but I also wanted one that was visually compact. So it Hiroshi is a lot of letters, but there's a bunch of eyes, and it's relatively compact so that I could fit more on the page. Um, it's kind of easy to. I am a very verbal person. I was talking with some fellow cartoonists, and one of them said, "Do you write the words first, or do you write the images? Do you do the images first and then create the words?" And that was a really interesting question to me. I've always been write the words and then figure out the images to go with it. And I wonder what it would be like to be the other way. She said that she writes the images first, and she's done a bunch of wordless comics because uh, we're doing a bunch of wordless comics is very hard for me because I have to figure out how to take the words and then remove them, translate it into an image. Um, so so editing down. Another one basic thing is people read left to right, uh, and I learned not to um, to just give into that, and then that means sometimes uh, editing out a conversation. I don't try to do too much back and forth in a single panel because it's really hard to read. Um, you just have to. You can use the bottom of the panel when you need to fit more in, but for the most part, you just do back and forth. This is an example of something I did very rarely, which is to swing the whole scene around so that you can go A, B, 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 A in terms of who's speaking. Um, but that was, I had early comics where I had tails crossed, and that just does not does not work. I used to see a lot of comics in web comics that had been that were like kind of talking heads. They would just I think they were all using the same images over and over again, and they would all be the writing, and then there'd just be these heads. I think it's better to avoid that. I like to give my characters, or I try to give my characters things that they're doing. I took these theater classes in college and in the Meisner technique, it's all about having some thing that you're doing that's kind of distracting you from the conversation you're having that creates some tension. And I just think it's more interesting the conversation is not about what they're doing, but they're doing the thing and then they're having the conversation that makes the whole thing more interesting. Um, I love, all right, like real life, but funnier. This is a story of something that happened in real life. Except in real life, it was the person that I saw out the window was Sally Jesse Raphael. Uh, but I thought it'd be funnier if it was Fran Drescher, and also that joke still works. People still know who Fran Drescher is, but no one remembers Sally Jesse Raphael. Um, this was also more or less a real thing that happened to me that I was I was a sperm donor, and I went to the place to do this, and they brought me into this room, and there was this like leather recliner that they rolled paper on, and it was extremely funny. And I thought, I'm gonna have to write about this because it is too funny not to write about. And also, I can make it into the chair from the Memorex commercial. And and there we go. Okay, so facial expression. No, this is yes, facial expressions. I feel like there's so much that you can so it's so important. It's so important to get facial expressions down. And I was years ago, I was going to at Webcomic Weekend in Western Massachusetts. I was going to lead a panel. Oh no, it was called Topotacon then. I was going to go to Topotacon, and I was going to lead a panel or a presentation on facial expressions, and then I had to cancel on it. My husband was really sick, and I had to back out of the whole thing. But I was in the process of collecting what I thought were wonderful facial expressions because I think it's so it is what conveys so much in the comic. But the other thing that conveys so much is hands. And drawing hands is hard, and I was not good at drawing hands. And I just made myself do it. Um, and uh, and the way I did that was reference photos, and I've got tons and tons and tons of reference photos of me, mostly with my hands, so that I can um, create a gesture in the comic that looks like a real gesture. And then one of the things that took me a few years to learn is that cheating is good, actually. And when I say this, when I say cheating is good, what I mean is that there are these techniques that feel like cheating because it is so much easier to draw a silhouette panel than it is to flesh out the whole thing. But then the comic is so much better with the silhouette panel. I saved myself time and I've improved the comic because it breaks it up visually. Um, Also, the concept of establishment panels where you draw the detailed stuff once. You can also see that in this. I did draw the detailed stuff twice, but you draw the detailed stuff once, and then you kind of zoom in. You don't have to put all the detail in every time. You shouldn't. You need to focus in on the people who are talking, but you also need to establish the scene. And zooming in and out is better. And then the other one is don't draw all the bricks.
Yep.
It looks so much better if you don't. And even in this one, there are a lot of bricks there, but that works for this particular scene. Better to have just enough detail to create the scene, and then um, uh, yeah. So that's the gist of it. That's what I've. I feel like that's all of my knowledge to impart. Um, this is one of the early works of a future troubled genius comics that I wrote about. This was me at 11 years old, realizing that I was not going to be a child prodigy if I didn't get on the stick, and I didn't end up being a child prodigy. Any questions?
Oh, let's see. I was sort of wondering with the uh, blue line. Do you ever have the problem with choosing a good pencil? I mean, one thing even though I did that quite a bit too, I always found a lot of the official blue pencils too waxy, so I was always on the lookout for pastels and whatnot, so it wouldn't have that problem, especially when blocking out large amounts of ink.
You know, I think this was a piece of advice from Chris Dresden. There is um, a pencil, a mechanical pencil company or there's a company called Jet Pens, and they sell things for mechanical pencils, you can order these turquoise pencil leads from Japan, And probably have some here. Oh, I don't here.
Okay.
Is this gonna, if I hold this, no, it's just gonna be white. They're pilot pencil leads, and they are turquoise. It's not exactly the right color. It's got a little bit too much yellow in it, which, because I was doing the four color separation, that meant that sometimes the pencils would bleed through into my wash layer. But that's what I did, is I got these mechanical pencil leads, and then I could use my mechanical pencil, and that felt so much better than using the non-photo blue that I just got at Blick or whatever. They're very brittle though. I would draw and they would like crack, 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 crack.
Yeah, no, it was sort of like between mostly going digital since then and scanners not being blind to that shade anymore. It's sort of like mostly a moot
Right.
question. It's always something that is sort of, as far as the nostalgic thing, it's the whole nostalgia of blue. The blue line had me thinking of that.
I feel like the four color separation kind of solves that a bit too, because I would scan and color and then I would be removing the colors. And there was a lot of adjustment that I would have to make. And I would go through and I would erase stray black marks and I would fill in stray missing things. It is easier working digital. It's hard to get the wash. I got a no, I don't have my iPad down here with me, but I got on someone's recommendation. I paid for I Procreate, and I got a pen, a paintbrush thing in Procreate that creates reasonably good looking um, watercolor, fake watercolors.
Hmm.
So in the return that I've done, I've been using that, and it's a whole new learning curve. Like on top of trying to figure out the discipline to get down and do this again and write, I'm also um, like on the one hand, it's great that I can delete and all that, but and do it again and erase on the fly and all that. But then trying to figure out how to make things look the way I want them to is like a whole new thing. And I feel like my lettering doesn't look good because I haven't everything's got these little extra tails on them that doesn't happen when I'm working on in a real pen.
Yeah.
But it's been I in this very weird time in which we're living, I basically went on hiatus in like uh either the very beginning of 2020 or the end of 2019, something like that. And so a lot has happened since then, and it's been
Mhm.
sort of fun to these characters who live inside me to say like, well, what would they do? I remember like after COVID happens and you lock down, you don't see anybody, and then you start having these Zoom meetings after several months, and every guy who's not bald suddenly has long hair.
Kept mine.
Like, yeah. Did you grow your hair out over COVID, or was that just
Yes, yes, I did. It was partially a whole wanted a new look and figured grow it out to give the barber something to work with and couldn't for the life of me decide. And now it's kind of a sunk cost fallacy, but I kind of like it.
yeah. There are also people who went gray in COVID, like
Mhm.
they'd been dyeing their hair and then they couldn't get to the salon, and then they had 6 inches of roots, and they were like, "What if I cut it off?" And so there was suddenly this change, and everybody looked different. And also, I've been thinking about how it messed up our social lives. Um, like the people that I used to hang out with, I'd not hanging out with the same way because everything kind of broke, and then we
Hmm.
had to reform it, and it didn't reform the same
Right.
way.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I'm thinking, like, well, how would that have played out with these people?
I find it, yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. I find it weird how Zoom, Discord, and whatever other similar two-way communication things. So it's sort of like the whole definition of the term meet uh, uh,
Hmm.
it's changed
Right.
completely. So it's because it's sort of like at one level I'm almost thinking it doesn't count, but at the same time, regular conversation, seeing face to face. But yeah, I mean, yes, it's not the same, but at the same time, I'm not willing to say it doesn't count.
Right. There is one thing I miss, and that's Zoom dinners. I don't know if you ever did
Hmm.
Zoom dinners where you have a group of friends and you're like, let's have dinner together, put our computers up and get on Zoom and
Yeah.
have a chit
Yep.
chat, and we're all eating dinner together. But then it's not, it's, I did it with people who were all over the place. So instead of like people that I would normally only see at comic shows, we had these dinners where we all got and we had chit chatted and we saw each other and it was really fun. And then when we didn't have to do that to socialize anymore, like we never did, like nobody gets in a Zoom call uh, socially anymore. I mean, I guess I should say present company excluded, but this is more than just social. It's a,
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and on another note, I mean, for example, I had this friends group for humor creators of just about every single medium, and I found this wonderful because it was a truly international group. And when I say that, the person who arranged it lived in a suburb of Sydney, Australia. There were
oh wow.
three Americans and one Canadian, and then on the absolute opposite extreme, one of uh, the another one of the members was in Manchester, England. So here we are. What for me was a 4 o'clock event. The Australian who's running it is just finishing breakfast, and the guy in Manchester, we were all amazed
Hmm.
that he was able to stay up that late.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, very much so.
I do feel like because I was writing a slice of life comic that was very much related to, well, not necessarily current events, but current time, anyway, I was glad that I was on hiatus during COVID. I don't know how I would have written about it. I couldn't have not written about it, and I did not want to write about it.
Yep.
I don't know if anyone has anyone written about COVID in their
I didn't.
comics. Like, I absolutely didn't want to do that.
I
No.
didn't do it. I didn't do it for my comic, but I did about 20 Instagram single panel comics about slowly going mad with the isolation.
Oh, I've pretty much avoided it. I mean, I just kind of wanted it to be over with. I remember like sending away there was like a book of all these stories about COVID that people put together, and I wanted to support, it was like a Kickstarter, and I haven't been able to read it. It's like I bought it, okay, I don't know, just too many
Yeah.
bad
I
things
sort of
happened
feel like,
during COVID. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't want to relive it.
really. I feel like I can talk about it now. Like I feel like
Mm.
I'm ready to think about some of these things, but uh and really like there wasn't anyone close to me who died during that time. So for me, my experience was all about like the isolation. I am a widower. I was at the time living alone. I was just knocking around this house by myself.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I lost one good friend, and I had another two friends who went through whose experience was so bad they almost wished they had been lost. I
wow.
mean, and then on the other extreme, my to show just how the whole experience messes with everybody. My cousin, for a while, was thinking that he had long COVID, only to discover eventually that it was actually emphysema.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
And of course, it's not like it's not over. It's just with us permanently now,
Yeah,
and that's
with any luck, we know the precautions. For example, I had my annual shot yesterday, and glad for it. And to a certain extent, glad that mask culture has become a bit more of a thing. I mean, for the occasional times that I come down with something nasty and unfortunately have to do a grocery run, and having a supply of masks means I don't have to feel guilty about feeling like a plague carrier. Because you at least have the mask to be for in the sake of good manners and not accidentally breathing on anybody for the very quick in and out you do at the shop.
I am one of those people who goes through these is this allergies or am I sick? Like several times a year.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I have what I refer to as morning congestion, and which has me blowing my nose until about 10 o'clock. And every now and again, for example, when the thermostat is running high and whatnot, creating what I refer to as a phantom fever, combined with that congestion, can do some really weird things to your imagination. I had a very amusing incident, my first social event after COVID, which was at this very loud venue, and I'm coming out of it suddenly realizing I had a sore throat. Oh my God, did I catch something? Am I carrying this? Did I check one of the tests? You were screaming all night, you moron.
Yeah, I do feel like every time I do a comic show, it's like you're talking all weekend, you're pitching all weekend, and and like on the one hand, masks are good, and on the other hand, it's harder to hear people, and so you're really yelling. And you go through this weekend of sitting at a table with a mask on, yelling at people who have masks on, who are yelling at you, and then uh,
and
at
you
the
have a
end of the
sore
weekend,
throat.
you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I have a sore throat. Did I
Right.
catch something from someone? No, you were yelling for 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, even if it isn't COVID, convention crud is a thing.
I tend to sleep a lot at conventions. I've never had too much con crud because I attribute that to getting a full night's sleep, which a number of my friends do not.
Yep.
But anyway, anybody have any other questions for Tony?
Not really.
Okay, well, anyway, for that thing, Tony, thank you once again for
Thank
a
you so much.
fantastic.
Thank you.
It's very
Thank you so much for having me. Great to see and meet you all.
Thank you.
It's been really fun.
Yeah, I appreciated all
I hope it was
the steps that you said you go through. It's nice to see the evolution
Right.
of art. Yeah.
Yeah. I had this idea a while back that I was at a party, and I was talking to a friend's brother who's a musician, and we were talking about creative processes, and I realized how much commonality there is, and I had this idea that I was going to host a salon and invite people who different creative fields to come over and chit chat about what it means to be creative, but I never did that because that's a lot of planning.
Oh, Bruce and I did that for years. I mean, we'd have
Did you?
every second Sunday or whatever, we'd have like we'd invite people to come and have a potluck and then show off your art or do something. And that ended with COVID. That's one of the things that ended with COVID. And Bruce is no longer, but I've started that up here out in my little remote town, LeConner. I mean, there's a lot of art. I mean, there's tons of artists here. I mean, it's like, so I'm getting that now. I mean, it's the only problem is out where I live, it's like I mean, it's, by 4:30, it's like pitch black. There's no light. There's a million trees. There's drainage ditch. So I'm going to have to change the hours for winter. I just realized because we had it last Sunday and I had to like guide everybody out. I mean, I've got like an upper driveway and a lower driveway, and it's, you don't want to be here in the middle of the night, but it's picking up.
Right.
I mean, you just kind of establish a certain time.
Very
and
cool. I remember going to one of those.
Oh
and that
yeah,
was a very
definitely
good event.
Yeah, it's just sort of this ongoing date, it's always the second Saturday or second Sunday at a certain time. And, some people, eventually they show up, they just know it's happening. And then we have like regulars. I've got about 5 or 6 regulars that come all the time. And then people that sort of, well, I'll try to make it. And then they suddenly make it. And we've had like musicians, and one of my friends, she made a little animated film and got to see that. So it's doable. I mean, it's good to have, creative people that you can, get together with in real life now that we're doing it again.
And you would do sort of like a show and tell kind of thing? Like,
Oh,
what have
yeah,
you
pretty
got
much.
to
Yeah.
tell? What are you working on? What do you...
Oh yeah, Bruce would always read one of his stories, and if you're an artist, like I've got a friend who's a painter, she always brings her big paintings in, and shows those off, and it's just, and the conversation tends to be, it's like less politics and more, arts and stuff. So just because of the, content, it kind of directs. And it's kind of, some people show up and it's kind of not for them. And it's like, okay, good riddance, because there's people that it's kind of organic, it's sort of like people kind of show up, and they've got a huge living room. I mean, it's a lot more room here than I mean, it wasn't going to be just me, but now it is. So I've got all this space and a lot of parking for out here. So it's kind of working. So it's, nowadays, people can also meet places. Like, we had Dune meeting every third Tuesday in Seattle. So it's, the idea is just getting a certain time that people know about and then just kind of sticking to it.
Yeah. And getting the word out to the creative friends.
Yep.
Well, thank you, because it's nice to know that this is an idea that's working for people. I should make it happen.
Yeah.
Well, it's basically just sort of people. It's just hard to get around here at night. I mean, it's like pitch black.
Right.
I mean, we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There's, lots of trees and hazards and animals and stuff.
I remember it being like that growing up in Maine, where it's not, where it's sort of like you don't know dark. It's sort of like darkness like that doesn't exist here.
When it's nowadays, I rarely go out after 4 p.m. anymore. I mean, it's just not worth it.
Right.
Great. Well, anyway, once again, thank you so much, Tony, and I hope everybody has a great evening.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
we will look forward to seeing everybody soon.
Great. Thanks again.
Everyone.